happy to be teaching you section 1.1 in your algebra lessons. We'll start with the word variable. I'm going to just walk my way right through this, talk as much. I'll try to get out of the shadow. Maybe I should go over here. Or maybe if I were taller. I am kind of short. 5'4" with my good shoes on. But I'm going to talk right through this and going to go at a relatively smooth, easy pace. But there will be times that you're going to have to pause it so that you can have time to write down what it is I'm saying. If there's stuff that you don't need to write down because you already know it, then don't write it down. I'm not going to check your notes to see if you're following along. But it's much easier to go back to your notes and look things over than it is to replay the whole video and listen to me again. When you're watching this on YouTube, you can hit the CC button on the bottom, which will tell you that it's closed caption, so you can read what I'm saying instead, if that's easier, or if you'd like it on mute. But anyway, back to variable. A lot of our chapters start with vocab, so that we speak the math language. A variable is a letter used to represent a number. Please spell the words properly when you write variable. Take the time. An algebraic expression, which is what we're going to be working with to start the year, consists of numbers, variables, and operations, or operations. It can be some of them. It doesn't have to be all of them. An algebraic expression does not have an equal sign. So where it says it could be a number, the number 5 is an algebraic expression. It could be a variable. X is an algebraic expression. It could have an operation, not like having their spleen operated on or having your gallbladder removed, but an add, subtract, multiply, divide, square root, exponent operation. So this would be an algebraic expression. No equal sign means no solving. There is a green table on page 2 of your book. You've already learned how to use your online book. You can go to that green table and look at it to write this down, or you can just look at it on here. An algebraic expression, a meaning, or an operation. Over here, as you see, it says 5 parentheses n, 5 dot n. Notice we don't use a time sign like an x because then it looks like a variable. It looks like your x you have up there. So we use dots for multiplication or 5n. All three of those mean 5 times n, which is multiplication. You will not be allowed to use this one or this one. This is the simplified and correct, we'll call it spelling of multiplication when you are doing a math problem. If it's a number and a variable, you do not put an operation in between them. And then we automatically know that it is multiplication. So get used to that. Yes, you will lose points if you start writing them like this. They mean the same, but I like to say it's not the same spelling that you're supposed to use. Division. I know what that looks like to you. It looks like a fraction. You're going to freak out being like, oh no, I don't like fractions. I hate fractions. Fractions are our friends in math class, and it means the same. If you see a fraction, 14 over y, go ahead and write it as 14 divided by y if you like it better that way. That I don't have a problem with. These are both mathematically correct. These are both mathematically representations of an algebraic expression. It said 14 divided by y, and obviously represents division. 6 plus c is 6 plus c, addition. And our last one, 8 minus x, you just say it as 8 minus x, which is subtraction. We're going to practice writing algebraic expressions, and then we're going to practice evaluating them. Notice it says the word evaluate. I'm going to stand in front of this so that you can't write all that down. Evaluate means same kind of thing as simplify. Like if you plugged in a number here, could you simplify this? We don't know what 6 plus c is, but if c was 12, we would know 6 plus c was 18. That's what it means to evaluate. You don't use the word solve when we're talking about expressions. Solved is when you do have an equal sign. We do not have an equal sign. And I will apologize for that glare. I won't apologize every time you see a lesson. There's just no possible way I can get rid of that from my smartboard or all the words on my face. Anyway, evaluate. Substitute a number, then simplify. That's what evaluate means. Figure it out. The question will ask you, evaluate the expression when n equals 3. N equals 3 is what we're evaluating. That's obviously not an algebraic expression. And it's going to ask you some questions. Part A, what is 13n when n equals 3? If you want to write it out, you would write 13 times n or 13 parentheses n. That's perfectly allowed when you are showing your work or showing your thinking. Sorry, I shouldn't have an n there. I should have a 3 there. We know what n now is. You can write 13 times 3 or 13 parentheses 3. And that makes sense because if you didn't use a times sign or a parentheses and you put a 3 in its place, it would look like 133. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for multiplication. So you can use those two expressions to represent showing your work, but not when you have a variable. Calculate that out. Go ahead and use a calculator. You will always be allowed to use a calculator in my class. Every test, every assessment, every quiz, when you take your ACT, when you're in junior in high school, you always get to use a calculator. So go ahead and calculator it out so that you don't make a mistake. Notice I didn't put equals 39. I just put 39 because I evaluated it. I didn't solve anything. Simplified. 39 is the answer. In B, 9 divided by n. Your choice. Do you want to write it as 9 divided by 3? I almost wrote n again. 9 divided by 3, knowing that n is 3? Or do you prefer to write 9 divided by 3? Either way of those is fine. Final answer is 3. When you have n minus 1, go ahead and put 3 in place of the n. 3 minus 1 is 2. Division and subtraction. Don't forget about that old commutative property. It is not okay to do those in reverse order. 1 minus 3 or 3 divided by 9 is not the same as 3 minus 1 or n or 9 divided by 3. You've got to keep them in order. Last one with an addition, n plus 8, 3 plus 8. That one's okay in the reverse order, but I don't know why you would write it in the reverse order, because what you're doing is substituting the 3 in for the n. So it makes sense that you would write it in the same order. 3 plus n equals 11. You get the same result, you just don't have the same expression. I think you get the point. I don't have to do 7 times 3 is 21. More vocab along with this. Exponent. Another word for an exponent is a power. It is repeated multiplication of the same factor. You're going to use the same factor. Factor, remember, is a piece of multiplication over and over and over. Or maybe just over and over twice. For example, if you have 3 to the 4th power, or 3 exponent 4, you can say it either way. 3 is called the base. 4 is called the exponent, or the power. And again, slow me down or pause me, rewind the video if you need more time to write this down. If you're asked to do the problem 3 power 4, and they tell you to write it in words, you would write 3 to the 4th power. Go ahead and get that in your notes so that you know you're supposed to write 3 to the 4th power. If they ask you to write it as a product, product means representation of multiplication. The product would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That's what you're looking for. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Again, we do not put an x between them because it looks like a variable. If you are actually asked to simplify 3 to the 4th power. If it says simplify that, it means they want you to evaluate it. They want the actual answer to what is 3 to the 4th power. I do not want you to use a calculator and type in 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Because what if we want 3 to the 12th power? Well, 3 to the 12th power is a lot of 3's on your calculator. So maybe we're going to work on using the power button on your calculator. If you look at your calculators, I don't know what kind you have, but find the power button. One of the calculators, it's a Texas Instrument, has a power button right over here. If that looks like your calculator, the power button is a little up arrow. It looks like this. This calculator has a y to the x. It looks like y power x. This is a Texas Instrument. It's right above your plus, minus, times, divide, and there's your power button. This Casio has another different look. It shows an x with a box up here, meaning that's the exponent. All 3 of those, depending on the calculator that you have, or if you turn your phone sideways when you're in calculator mode, you can use your calculator for that. But keep in mind, you're not going to be able to use your phones in class, so you should have your own calculator. If you see those buttons, what you're going to do is do 3, then hit the power button, either this one, or this one, and then 4. And once you hit the equals, it'll tell you that the answer is 81. So 3 power 4, when it is simplified, is 81. Please, please, please use your calculator. Couple shortcuts. Here we have x to the 2nd power and x to the 3rd power. X to the 2nd power, x to the 3rd power, maybe you already know this, in words, because it's used so often, is x squared. X to the 3rd power is another shortcut. That's called x cubed. X cubed in words to the 3rd power. And one of the main reasons that those are used so often and you use them as a shortcut is because of measurements. If you're going to buy a square foot or square yard, probably of carpet, or are you going to buy cubic yards of dirt to put in your yard? So square and cubed are very, very much used in units and measurements. How would you write that as a product if they ask you? X times x is the x squared, and x times x times x is the x cubed.